wellness. And I want you to understand that wellness is far more than just not being sick. And I hope this will help you understand that. It's a very broad area. It is an important part of self-reliance. And we're either going to make provisions for whatever may come in the future. If you choose not to make provisions, then you end up being a victim. And we do, of course, have that choice if we would like to do that or not. Now, where does this class fit into this overall curriculum is one of the questions. Well, there's a lot of classes that we have. The mission has been to reach and to teach as many people as we can. And one of these classes, of course, is the great value of wellness, of health. It's one of our great wealths that we have. A whole series of classes, as you see, here is the listing of the wellness classes, and we'll kind of be touching on those tonight to give you an idea of some of the things you need to learn. Now, one of the challenges that comes up sometimes as I go through these classes and show so many, some people say, my goodness, there's so much, do I have to learn it all? And the answer is no. In fact, you won't be able to. In fact, I don't know it all. That's why I have other people that do classes and teach. But you need to have within your community, and I put quotes around community, and we'll talk about building community in a future class, within your community that you have access to people that have some of the expertise that you do not have. This will help you understand some of the things you're looking for and why it is that you might want to join with other people or have them join with you. So you don't have to know it all because it's not possible to do that. However, please understand that our preparedness has to be based on understanding of principles. And one of the things that makes this work is if you understand principles of how and why things work, you may not have all the skill, all the understanding, and all the material things, but with the principles, you know what to look for and what to find, how to understand, to extrapolate and put things together if you need to. So it's what's inside of your head and your heart is far more important than the things that you own. So we want to always back things up to principle, not preference. I like blue, you like red. There's not a principle in that as far as our likes or dislikes may be. But if we understand how and why something works, that becomes the principle. Well, within this area of preparedness, for myself, I wrote a whole series of laws. There's 8 of these that I talk about the most. We touch on a few of them very briefly here for brand new people. The law of Provident Living, which is spiritual attitude, knowledge, and stuff, and it has to be in that order. It can't be in any other order as far as I am concerned. The law of stewardship, well, that's the reason I'm here, that's the reason you're here. It's about authority, responsibility, and accountability in that order. And our health fits into that very well. We'll see that in just a few moments. The law of the parachute is another one of these, and I like the description of using the parachute because it's a very simple way of looking at how things would work for a disaster, because you have to have things before you need them. You have to know how and why they work. You have to actually be able to use them, and they have to be of life-saving quality, except we're talking about your attitudes and knowledge, skills, and then the supplies and materials you have. Because once a disaster has happened, it doesn't care, and it has no responsibility for your well-being. Within this area of preparedness for myself, I broke it into 9 of these core modules, and each one of these is a parachute because you can't eliminate any one of them. Well, to learn more about these and other important principles, you can do that online. In fact, what I was mentioning at the very beginning, Prepare to Survive No Matter What. That's class 1001. That is free online, available to everybody. Please send people there. It'll help people get an idea of what we're talking about. And all 9 of these 1000 series are available online. Also, there is a DVD that's available in the Self-Reliance series, Part 1, the Foundation. That's available through Safe Harbor Alliance. We sell that one inexpensively so that people can get it and get started. Well, tonight in these 9 preparedness modules, we're obviously talking about wellness. And this class, 7001, is the big picture, if you will, taking a look at this whole area. Because each one of these classes, some of these classes are 3, 4, 5 hours long, so they won't fit tonight. There are 4 key factors to wellness that we will be exploring. These factors literally are very simply in this, I'll say in kind of in this order: stewardship, the 6 characters or creatures that make us up, the use of the 9 modules, and the 3 phases of wellness, and then we explore the classes. Well, wellness factor number 1. It's all about the law of stewardship, and you find greater depth in that in class 1101. And stewardship is this, as we already looked at, it's about authority, which has been granted to every one of us. We have the authority to act. We have the responsibility. This is where our daily actions come in, and it's all about the choices that we make, whether we make good or bad choices. But the bottom line is we will be held accountable for every single thing that we do or do not do. And that accountability will happen, and we have no choice about what it ultimately will be. Well, wellness factor number 2. And these are these 6 distinct creatures that I talk about. We don't have a lot of time in this class, but I will give you a great deal of information in the more expanded classes that we have in this area of wellness. But you need to recognize them, because literally, and if you'll think about it, some of them are very closely linked together, but yet they are in fact separate and apart. So we are social, we are spiritual, we are intellectual, we are emotional, we are mental, and we are physical. All of those things make us up. And you must nurture and balance each one, and each one has to be cared for and taken care of. Now, you can't ignore any one of them or mistreat any one of them. When we get out of balance, that's when things, I'll say, break or don't go as well. The social side of us, this is literally our contact with the world outside of us. We're very social, whether we're an introvert or not. And I'm one of those guys who, believe it or not, is actually very introverted. I'm quite withdrawn, yet I have a job, a mission, and things that draw me out, but I would just as soon sit in the corner most of the time. We are spiritual. That's who you really are. I believe that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. There's the intellectual part of us, the capacity for learning. There's the emotional, where we react and respond in our attitudes. There is the mental, and the mental, if you will, the brain, the physical part of us, that's the interface between who we are spiritually, emotionally, how we feel, and social, with the physical being that we actually are. So that's a quick rundown on how these things are. And you see, if you view health from this way of looking at it, and you understand that you are all of these creatures and you need to have them in balance, and you may find one of them that's seriously out of balance. You know, I'm kind of an introvert. Well, I need to work on that. And there's other things that I need to work on to bring into balance. When you recognize that, you have the chance of becoming, if you will, more healthy, more well. All right. Well, factor number 3 in our wellness. This very simply is that you have to draw upon all 9 of these parachutes, all 9 of these wellness, or these areas in which we live, these foundation areas. The foundation, which is principles, clothing, water, sanitation, shelter, toolness, wellness, supplies, all of these things are a part of us. We've seen those elsewhere. Factor number 4 that we talk about. There are the 3 phases of wellness, and this is extremely important as you're going forward. And if you're working on preparing for, emergencies and disasters and problems, you have to understand how this really works, because these are very, very important, and you have to take care of each one of them. So they are this. Number 1, phase 1 is about remediation, repair, restoring. It's about building. And if we're talking about physical health, it's about working on restoring physical health. But it can be mental, emotional, spiritual, all of these areas. So one of them is to build yourself to your optimum level now. The next one is you have to be prepared to maintain that wellness, that health at its optimum level, no matter what is going on. And if we're talking about being prepared for disasters and catastrophes and injury, you have to be able to maintain it through those. However, realizing that things happen, phase 3 is what I call my new word, which is interventive. That is taking intervention to fix things. And it's about treatment, it's about recovery, it's about restoring. And this is kind of a loop, because that interventive area is to go back, if you will, to the beginning. If something's been knocked off center, that's to bring it back to center. And it's very important that you explore each one of those. We will do that in great depth, where we have time for that and the 6 creatures in the class 7101. And that's to understand that true well-being comes from inside the person, not from outside. The outside has effect on it, but your true well-being comes from inside. Now, in this big picture view, as we're looking at this preparedness module of wellness, we're going to, and all this wellness area really touches in all of the other 8 areas. As a matter of fact, one way of looking at it, you can say, well, everything that we do in preparedness is about wellness. That's true. But what happens is there's some things that fit either in multiple areas or some that don't seem to fit very well in another one. So we talk about them here in particular. Dental health, spiritual stamina, true mental resilience, first aid following trauma, avoiding illness, prevention is so important, emotional and psychological stability, personal protection and family defense, this interventive treatment of illness and disease, rest and recreation. It's about the whole being recharge, and then the special needs of infants, elderly, and the disabled. These are things that we will be talking about briefly tonight, and it fits into this whole area. Well, spiritual stamina, the first one. And by the way, the first 3 of these that I'm going to talk about tonight are they're like sisters. They're first cousins. They're very closely linked together, yet they're different. It's important that you understand that, and we cover that in the future classes. And spiritual stamina is built through time with knowledge, with experience, with practice. But you have to be ready to maintain it no matter what, because if that spiritual stamina weakens, you can find yourself in serious trouble. You give up. Now, my roots and who I am, my roots, I'm a Christian. And I'm not going to tell everybody what you should do, but I will tell you what I believe is correct and right in the right kind of a setting. So that's my root and foundation, and I believe that we find so much direction, guidance, and help within the scriptures. And this is places to find things that will give us guidance and that we can fall back on. There's other things that fit into this area that for me work very well. Now, you'll find things that will work for you, but for me, music is critically important. So as I'm preparing for a time of great stress, and then to help maintain the spiritual area, music is one of the things that I will use. I use now because there's an awful lot of stress at times in my life, as it is probably in all of your lives. So there's a lot of things that you can learn to draw on. But the point is this: you build to optimum strength now. You have to be able to maintain that by whatever means that you use. And we have some materials, some more ideas here for you. And then when you get flattened by life, when trauma happens, when spiritual trauma happens, how do you recover? Do you just quit, or do you bounce back? And what do you use to bounce back? Well, since it is built over time with knowledge and experience, there are some things that can help you. For me, it's the teachings within the scriptures, because you become like what you read and study. So I always tell people, be careful of your choices and things that you look at and read, because they literally become a part of you. You also associate with spiritual giants because you become like the people you spend time with. They become your mentors and your teachers. There's a DVD that I highly recommend people own. You may have seen it. Even if you've seen it, please own it, share it. And that is America's Godly Heritage by David Barton. And that is worth looking at, because to me, that's our foundation. And then this correct music is spiritually inspiring. So choose wisely, listen to those things. I do those things now because they help me now to get through some of the things that I have to deal with and some of the stresses. Well, there's classes available to help. This class 7101, True Well-Being, comes from inside the person, not from outside. The Wellness Class 7201, which is the library on health. And there's a great deal of wealth in the wellness library, and some of these things touch on all of these areas. And then there's a foundation class, 1207, Surviving Against All Odds, and it may also help you with some of this resilience that you need. Now, speaking of resilience, there is the mental resilience that's very important that you understand. So when we talk about mental resilience, please understand that it's something that you build up over time. It's something you practice and you work with, and you must be prepared to maintain it no matter what's going on around you. Now, this looks very similar to the spiritual strength and stamina, and it very much is. Now, for me, things that will affect that and that I want to be prepared with in the future, again, will be music and things to listen to. Sometimes it's a spoken word also. These first 3 I'm talking about, as I said, are very closely tied together. Spiritual stamina and mental resilience, very closely tied. But in this case, I will bring in some other music and kinds of things that will help me bounce back when I get clobbered. And I regularly listen to some of this great and even classical music. But please understand that taking care of the physical has a huge effect on your mental well-being, because the mental, if you'll remember, is kind of the physical interface between, if you will, the body and the spirit and the emotions and all these other kinds of things. So if you become weakened physically, if you're out of balance chemically and those kinds of things, then your mental well-being is going to be affected. So here it comes into nutrition as an important part of it, supplementation and other things. As a matter of fact, you'll see us keep building on this, because this isn't one area that just the little pockets of wellness that are all independent by themselves. They all interreact. They're all interrelated. Well, this mental resilience, it's something you work on right now, you practice right now, and you want to have an understanding, a belief, an absolute faith that you can maintain it when it gets hard. And then you have to be prepared with things to help you bounce back. Now, for me, it's music and things that I would read and listen to, and also people that you hang around when things get tough. Well, true mental resilience is built over time, and here's some books. Now, these books you have seen, if you've been through the foundation class, you've actually already seen these books, because they all support our mental resilience and other things we talk about. Deep Survival by Lawrence Gonzalez, very important book. Miracle in the Andes by Nando Parado. The Raft, Robert Trumbull. Endurance, Alfred Lansing. And Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. These are books, and in the libraries that I do, we'll have time to give you more of a book review on them. In fact, here, a couple of months back, 3 or 4 months back, we did an in-depth review of Deep Survival. I'll do that with all of them. Wellness Class 7101, we've already seen that one. You'll see that one online in the future, as well as it'll be on DVD. In the library, again, 7201. There's so much to learn there. Surviving Against All Odds. We've already seen those. They fit right in with this area, but also others. In this one, you can watch online. That's Foundation Class 1001, Prepare to Survive No Matter What. It's an overview of that foundation area. More in depth on the core principles of self-reliant living are in 1101. And then the Foundation Class 1106. We're in this together. It's about building community. That is an extremely important one, you understand. And that goes right back to what I was saying in the beginning, where it's like, you look at this area, even in this area of wellness and all the things we talk about, it's like no one person can learn and know and be able to do it all. And that's true. That's why we build community. And it's important that you be involved in associating with and helping to build community where you can support and help each other. Foundation Class 1105, the Foundation Library, is important. And then the Foundation Class 1120, which is Ready, Set, Evacuate, which is very much about mental, emotional, psychological kinds of things that you have to deal with in coming up to the decision, do I stay or do I go? Emotional and psychological stability. Well, it's built over time also, and you have to be ready to strengthen it, maintain it, no matter what's going on in your life. And you use a variety of things to help do that. Now, here again, we come right back to physical care affects the emotional well-being. That's why the nutritional classes are so important, because if you have lousy nutrition now or lousy nutrition during an emergency, your mental, emotional, psychological is going to suffer tremendously. So you've got to take care of those things. Also, the emotional care that we were just talking about with music, well, that certainly helps your psychological stability and your ability to stay on center and not just unravel when things get tough. The scriptures and the spiritual side of things, this all fits together. That's why I said these first three that I talk about, they're so closely related, you can almost make the claim that they're one. But it is very important to understand that each one of them is different in how we react. So that's why I've split them apart. And in that class 7101, we spent a lot of time in those. Okay? Here it is again. You build now. You do things that are going to allow you to maintain. You have the tools, the means, the understanding, the practice, and then you're prepared to intervene for yourself. And oh, by the way, this isn't just about you, is it? This is about the responsibility that you have for others, for family, for other people that are in your community. And it may be for neighbors or somebody that you're trying to help. So this isn't just about me. This is really about the outreach, and it is ultimately about community. we have the same list we had before, so I won't spend a lot of time here. Deep Survival, Miracle in the Andes, The Raft, Endurance, Man's Search for Reading. If you don't own those books, please get them. You need them, you need to read them, you need to study them, which means read them more than once. I'll talk about those more in the library. So here again, we have some of the same classes we looked at. In the Wellness Class 7101, about what comes out of inside of you, the library, surviving against all odds, prepare to survive no matter what, core principles of self-reliant living in 1101, that's Foundation 1101, and the Foundation Class 1106, we're in this together, building community, because we need each other. Now, one of the things I want you to be sure that you're recognizing is that importance of community, because you'll so easily become overloaded now trying to get ready and or when things get tough. Now here's the recharge. This is one of these things that's so critically important, rest and recreation. And just like before, you've got to learn to do it now and be ready to take care of it no matter what. We won't talk a lot about that. But it is about this learned art that is to balance work and stress and focus. It is literally about play in some cases. In some cases, it's just literally about the time out. For me, one of the things that I will do is that I will put on a pair of headphones, I'll get out the CD, and I'm going to listen to a symphony. I'm going to bury myself in the imagery of one of those things. The fountains of Rome or the pines of Rome or one of these things. At least for me, being a right brain person, I see the music. Now, you'll find something else that'll help you in your rest and recreation. It is about playing games. It's about doing things together. It may be, as we're about to do in that upper left-hand picture, we're about to have, well, it's a pie-eating contest that turns into a food fight. I mean, sometimes you just have to let your hair down. And frankly, this is the area that I'm probably the weakest in of all areas. I admit that. And I'm working on that. In fact, I'm going to ask some of you for some help here in just a moment with some of our books. But you learn to do it now, play now. And you have to remember to rest and play during hard times. You know, sometimes, and this is one of my challenges now because my days are just jam-packed with video editing and class creation and filming and different things like that to get this stuff out because we have this tiny little crew of people and yet we want to meet things. And so I do forget to rest. I forget to play. Well, I'm doing better now because my wife and two daughters that are home, I've actually given them permission to drag me into some of this. In fact, one of the things that I would like to have help with is finding some more books. And if some of you know a book about the art of play, and I, you know, there's all kinds of game books and things like that, but I'm talking about the psychological importance of this and how it helps us. I'd like to read those books. Now, the book Deep Survival, by the way, touches on this because the people who survive, this is why this book is so important, the people who survive are the ones that can get outside of themselves and not just focus on the very difficult situation that they're in. They look at the beauty around them, they use humor and all kinds of things like that. That's a part of being a survivor. That's why that book is here. And so I appreciate it from that instructional standpoint. It's part of the reason I've started to, if you will, play and recreate a little more than I have done for a long time, because I'm intent on getting this stuff out to people. And yet it does help to recreate and play. And so I do a little more of that. Wellness Class 7101, it's really what's inside of you. And the Wellness Class 7201, which is all about the library. But if some of you would like to send me some things you've learned about play and some study material there, DVDs, audios, I would appreciate that to send them in. You can send them to the web address through the contact through the web address. They'll come to them. Just be sure that they're addressed to me and they will come to me. This is for Jim Phillips because I got a flat spot in my personality and it's about play. I've been kind of a serious guy for an awful long time and I need to improve on that. So there's my, if you will, my confession for the evening. But we all have flat spots in our personality. If we'll realize that, we won't be quite as maybe to take ourselves too seriously. Anyway, illness avoidance and prevention. It's learned through knowledge and experience over time, and you have to be prepared to deal with these things and take care of them ahead of time. And part of this, again, is things we'll see again and again And that's where this wellness area links all the stuff within it, ties together, and it touches in every one of the other 9 modules. Foundation, clothing, that's about a wellness area also. Water, sanitation, nutrition, shelter. We talk about wellness here, obviously, but you see how it fits through all of them, some of them very easily and very clearly. In fact, I have a class that I'm putting together that talks about all of those things and how they link together. Now, it will be important that you explore some alternative areas of doing things, that you have some other tools, if you will, in your tool chest. Because if you're trying to maintain your physical wellness by avoiding and by preventing, there's things that will help you head that off. And a lot of that has to do with what we eat. It has to do with the kinds of diet, but other things you may do with fasting and understanding these things. These are some of the books that I've studied and read through the years that's been assisting me. And I still have a huge amount of learning to do. It's about this daily maintenance of things you do through what you eat. And it ties right into our foods and our nutrition, obviously, supplementation, different things we may have. And in the sanitation class, you see this because one of the things that's so critically important to avoid illness is issues with sanitation. And in the sanitation class that you can watch online, I make this point that the people of Haiti were better prepared than we people are in the U.S. to deal with a sanitation catastrophe, such as Haiti had with that earthquake. And should the U.S. have a Haiti level of event, we'll have bigger trouble because we're just not mentally, emotionally prepared to deal with that level of yuck. And there's people that literally will quit. Well, there we go back to mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological resilience and looking at things and say, this is terrible, but I'm not going to die because of it. I'm going to take control. I'm going to work my way through this. It's important that you understand that. You must have a plan of action for when our system is down and not working, that you can be prepared to take care of yourself, because sanitation and keeping things cleaned up is critical. This is a gigantic part of prevention. And that's why I spent a lot of time in the sanitation class about how we're going to keep ourselves from becoming ill with things that go on around us, taking care of personal hygiene and things clean. And this comes right back to this mental, emotional attitude about things. And when we have time in the sanitation class, that upper right-hand picture, there's all your toilet paper rolls that are empty. You know, that's that personal hygiene sanitation issue. And if your attitude says, hey, and I've had people tell me this, if I can't have toilet paper, I'd rather be dead. That's a bad attitude. That's not about mental, emotional, psychological resilience and stability. That's about quitting because you have an inconvenience and you feel you're entitled to have a certain thing. That's why these things all tie together. And it is about learning and developing our diet and nutrition and supplement and things like this, and about minerals. It's about having other tools at our hand. And I like to have things that have multiple uses, like grapefruit seed extract that can be used in a variety of areas. And where I have time, we talk in greater depth about that. But that's an important thing to have, because all the different things you can do with it. And the silvers and some of the colloidal silvers, some of them are far better than others. I believe this one, the Solutions IE silver, is the best one of all. We have extensive experience with that. I talk about that in some of the other areas. But there's some odd things that a lot of people don't know about. Fossil shell flour, amphora silica, we're talking diatomaceous earth, sometimes abbreviated as DE, but it's used in pool filters. That is not the stuff you want. That stuff is not going to do the same job. It's not food grade, and it has actually some health issues. This is an important product that has multiple uses that we're going to use in water filtration, insect and pest control, grain and seed storage, about garden insects. It can be used internally and externally with humans and with animals. It has trace elements helping with elimination of intestinal parasites and toxins, those kinds of things. It's an important product to have. It's one of them that we carry in our genre of things, and I'd recommend that you have, and have quantities of it, because it works so very well. And then there's a few odd things that some people are not familiar with. Now, coffee, the coffee bean, and ground coffee, well, where does it fit? Now, there's other things that you can do a similar thing with, but you might want to learn about these alternatives, and that's the good old-fashioned coffee enema that helps with detoxification. See, there's a lot of things. This can help you not get sick. Now, use this carefully. You have to have wisdom. You have to understand what you do and what you don't do. And this is one of those things I know that people say, like, oh, yuck, back when I was a kid, if you're old enough, back when you were a kid, there were times you were sick and you got the enema, and we don't like to talk about that because that's yucky and what have you. Hey, folks, it works. It helps. And if you don't have other options, you need to be prepared with the tool, the equipment, if you will, the knowledge, the understanding, and some of the things that you could use to enhance that. By the way, distilled water does a pretty darn good job too. There's other things that we want to shy away from. This book that I talk about in the library, Nuclear War Survival Skills, this is really about preventing getting sick from radiation poisoning and radiation damage. There's things you can learn from that, and it's also in the use of potassium iodine, those kinds of things that you'll want to know about, because that is about preventing illness. And that's number one. It's easier to prevent than it is to recover. All things nutrition, all things sanitation are critical to what we're talking about. Well, avoiding illness and preventing these kinds of things, it is about getting to your optimum health now, being able to maintain it, and to be prepared to intervene and recover after trauma, after illness, after something has happened. So things that will help you with this as you're trying to learn, as you make the commitment, as you practice. There's a DVD that you really should get. It's called Food Matters. You can get it at www.foodmatters.tv. Get that, watch that. A lot of people are familiar with the kinds of concepts that are in there, but you may not be, or you may have people around you you're trying to help. It's very powerful. It's worth watching. The Culprit and the Cure, this book by Stephen Aldana. This is about building your optimum, physical abilities right now, and that's about being able to prevent becoming ill. The Maker's Diet is another thing that's well worth looking at to get ideas from, by Jordan S. Rubin. And then you associate with people, and in particular people who may have had serious health issues, and they've done things, they've changed their lifestyle to recover, whether it's just simply losing weight or whether it's recovering from very serious illness, because as you spend time with these people, as they become your mentor teachers, you learn things and you change. And that's really what the Culprit and the Cure is about, is kind of changing some of our lifestyle and those types of things, because really it's lifestyle that gives us the most grief in these areas. Well, classes that we have available, we've already seen these, so I'm not going to talk about them too much, some of them. The one, which is 7102, that's a new one. That's the Sanitation Health Link and the Parasite Peril. There's something that we don't deal a lot with in this country. And when we have sanitation issues, parasites can become an extremely serious problem, and they can really, really harm your health. Another class, 7202, don't fall prey to pandemic. And there have been and there will be pandemics in the future. How do you avoid, being in trouble with them? The Wellness Class 7103, Wellness Through Foods, Herbs, Supplements, and More. Wellness Class 7210, Vital Herbs and Essential Oils for Grid Down Living. See, some of these are things you do now to build your health, and other things you want to have in store so that you can maintain it. Sanitation Class 4104, The Hidden Deadly Disaster. That class of all of the sanitation topics is an important one for you to look at. Nutrition Class 5101, Nutrition for Health and Strength During Disasters, and 5103, Building Health for the Future, Vitality with Superfoods, things that you can do right now. Another one of these topics that you need to be prepared with, I believe, is the special needs of infants and the elderly and the disabled. Whether those people are in your household or not, you need to be aware. Well, this is based on, in particular, love, patience, along with the knowledge and experience, and you have to be prepared to deal with these things. So you get learning. You go to classes. You read some books. The Red Cross has a couple of things that would be very useful if you're just getting started in some of these areas. Now, mothers very often are pretty much up on babies and children, but there may be this first aid and kinds of things that you'll need to learn there. And then what are you going to do when you don't have the clinic and the emergency room? That's where it's really important to learn what you're going to do to be able to maintain it when everything around you is broken, and how do you recover from health issues with infants, with children, with the elderly, and with the disabled after events have really gone south on us? Well, here's some things that will help. First aid and safety for babies and children, the American Red Cross. That's a good general place to start. Family caregiving, American Red Cross. And then in this area in particular, refer back to the emotional resilience and psychological stability we talked about, because dealing with those situations can be tough. Class 7101, true well-being comes from inside the person, not from outside. And then Class 7241, grid down care of infants, the elderly, and the disabled. I refer to grid down very often, simply meaning that we don't have the infrastructure and the support around us that we would like to have, that we believe we should have, but we don't. What are you going to do then? Because you don't have 911, you don't have a clinic, you don't have an emergency room. How do you take care of them? And then the foundation class, 1207, surviving against all odds, because it literally is a decision in many cases whether you're going to make it or not, whether you're willing to put up with these kinds of things. All right? Well, first aid for grid down living. Now, we have our standard first aid that you can learn about, gain some experience with. You want to do that, but you want to be ready to go beyond that. But you start with traditional training. Please do this. Please get with the Red Cross and or the hospitals and people that are giving first aid classes. Learn first aid. Learn to be able to give CPR. Keep up on some of these latest things. You'll want to have those standard things, but then you need to move beyond that. You'll find books and classes that will help you. Where there is no doctor. Now, this is written for the third world. Well, if you find yourself living in a third world environment, that will be an important manual to have, but you need to be learning about those things now. Wilderness medicine, and this is beyond first aid. This is by Dr. Forgy, a very important book. Excuse me. Mountaineer medicine for mountaineering. People who are off in the wilderness and remote, you really break something bad, you've got to take care of it or cut it or stab it or skewer it. You have to know what to do about those things. So the people who are living remote have learned a lot of those things. There's a class that we offer by Dr. Jed Adamson. We'll have that again. It'll be filmed, it'll be available there, but it's a hands-on class too. That's holistic first aid. And this is bringing in some other things. Traditional first aid, the way that he is trained as a first responder, he's now a naturopath, and now you bring in some of the herbs and essential oils and things to help. And he teaches a class on that that's extremely important for you to have so that you can deal with some of these very difficult situations. You've got to get some supplies. At least start with very basic supplies that you have right now, first aid. But be prepared to go beyond the basics as you can. You may in fact want to go right to a very advanced first aid supplies and training and tools. You know, I would encourage as many people as can, take a first responders class. Get yourself qualified to ride on an ambulance. Be a volunteer for a period of time. That will give you extraordinary experience. Hopefully you'll have some people in your community, people that you're associated and working with that have done that. Maybe you should be that person. Consider that very strongly so that you can take care of your family and people around you. Well, back to nutrition. And here's one that this actually has an awful lot of things that help us in this area. Prescription for Nutritional Healing. That's a book that we use regularly. We use all the time, and you'll see it again and again in several areas that I talk about. First aid for grid down living. Well, you build your optimum health now so you're not as susceptible. You need to maintain your optimum health and the people around you in your community, but you have to be prepared for that interventive action following trauma and injury, because that's what first aid is so much about. Where there is no doctor, wilderness medicine, medicine for mountaineering, prescription for healing, first aid essentials, all of these that we've talked about, these are publications that you'll want to have. Classes that we offer, this holistic first aid class 7310, wellness class 7104, which is about medical supplies, tools, and training to have in your community. Whether you have it or whether you help bring it into your community, you need to understand some of those things that you're looking for. They're outside the normal Band-Aids and the normal basic first aid. And then wellness class 7240, grid down first aid and long-term injury care. We normally think of first aid, and this is the way that it's taught. You give first aid until the first responder comes, till the ambulance comes, the rescue people come, or you get them to the hospital. That's what first aid is about. So this is about first aid, and then what is the long-term aid that has to be given, because those other things don't exist. That's what grid down is all about. Well, interventive treatment for injury and illness. Now, first aid is the kind of the short-term thing, and if you take a look at this one, this looks just about what we talked about, because really it is. It's just extending it from the immediate things you do to get you through that crisis and that immediate trauma, so you don't bleed to death, so you get the heart started, you get the respiration going, and you take care of those things. But now what are you going to do? You need to learn these alternatives we've talked about. There's a variety of things that would be most useful. I've done a lot with thieves oil through the years, gaining experience with it and maintaining and controlling some things. You'll want to learn about them. And then these books and everything we've talked about, it's about nutrition, it's about lifestyle, it's about supplements and those things. Now, part of what I'd like to do is give you a little bit of hope of things that you can do. And I warn people, if you haven't seen this before, there's some pictures that might be a little bit grim for some folks. This is personal. This is my wife's ankle. This is ulceration that we had that occurred. There's a long story behind this, because it was medical intervention, standard medical intervention, and this is not against medicine at all. We use doctors, we love them in hospitals, but sometimes things don't go well, and my wife, it turns out, was very allergic to a compound that was in an Unis boot. She had a tiny, tiny little ulcer the size of a tip of a match head, and since she has diabetes and some circulation issues and what have you, the statement was, you've got to go get this taken care of before it gets worse. And so she went in to do that. They put it on. Excuse me. Unfortunately, she was extremely allergic to one of the compounds that was in there that most people aren't allergic to, and it ate her leg. And it went from a normal skin color to this bright, it was much more magenta purplish than this for a long time, and ate her leg, did very serious damage, and any of the medical treatments that were used only made it worse. And the doctors, they just didn't have the toolbox on that, and we had to search for ways to do this. Now, this went on for a long time. This was years of some of this trouble we were going through, and we used different herbs and things like that. But when we got to a formula that worked, we went from that to this. Now, that was not easy, and it didn't happen in a week or two. This was months and months and months. But anything we tried to do medically by what we would consider to be the standard treatments, she was reacting to badly, and it was causing more damage. And as a matter of fact, at one point, the consideration was the only thing that the medical people could do. They said the next step is amputation, and that's not a good place to be. So anyway, I want you to know, and I want to give you hope that these alternatives can work. They're not magic, and this is not to take away from other kinds of medical practices, procedures, medications, and things that when their time is right, they have their place. But what if you don't have them? What if they're no longer available to you? Do you have an alternative? And these pictures just simply say, yes, you do, but you need to learn about them and be prepared to do them. So this treatment of injury and illness, you need your health now. It needs to be optimum to people around you, and you have to be prepared with the tools, the materials, the understanding, the education to intervene when things have gone south. Here again, where there is no doctor, wilderness medicine, medicine for mountaineering, prescription for nutrition healing, that book that I've already mentioned several times, my wife says if I could only have one of these alternative treatment care information books, she says that would be the one. Prescription for nutritional healing. Now, we have a bunch of others that we'll refer to, but that's the one we go to first and foremost. The DVD, Food Matters, is important, and First Aid Essentials by the Red Cross, those all fit into this also. And then we have what we've seen before, some of these classes, but we do have 7311, which is Wild Harvest Healing Herbs. What are you going to do? You can find some of your own if you learn about them. Be careful. This takes wisdom, and this takes training. The medical supplies and tools and trainings to have in your community, 7104. The Holistic First Aid class, 7310. The Wellness Through Foods, Herbs, and Supplements, 7103. Wellness class, 7210. Vital Herbs and Essential Oils for Grid Down Living and then the 7310 holistic first aid class, all of them important. These kinds of things that we've already talked a little bit about, caring for infants and elderly, this is all ties back together with things we've already seen. Dental health, now this is one. This is kind of close to my heart at the moment because I'm working on some things right here and I understand how critically important it is. It's something that you learn to do through knowledge and experience, but what are you going to do to take care of things after the fact? Well, there's one book where there is no dentist. This is, again, is for the third world, but there's other classes and things that we'll bring to you because I'm working with some dentists and talking to them. These are areas that are outside of my normal expertise, and so I bring other people in. You've got to restore your dental health now. It needs to be optimum. Get to the dentist, take care of things, repair. This can be expensive, can be challenging. We know that because we're dealing with that too. You need to be able to maintain your optimum dental health during the hardship. That means you need to have the proper tools and skills and knowledge and what have you. And by the way, this ties in very, very, very closely with your nutrition, with your diet, with your lifestyle. But the one that most people know little about, that I know little about, is being prepared for the treatment of dental trauma. What do you do if you bust off a tooth? What do you do if, in spite of everything you've done, you have a tooth that is collapsed? What do you do when you lose a filling? How do you pull a tooth? I mean, there's no dentist. And by the way, there doesn't have to be there isn't any Novocaine. Well, that's the way they used to do it. You go back into the 1800s, well, how do you do that? How do you do that properly? I've learned a few things, and I want to learn more because what I've learned from the dentists that I've talked to is you just don't grab a hold of it and jerk it out. That does more trauma and damage. There's a way that you can reduce and make it easier to pull out. And those are some of the things that will be taught in those classes that we're putting together. Where There Is No Dentist is the book. And then you have dental repair, care, and maintenance and readiness for grid down living. It's not just about brushing your teeth and going to the dentist right now. There's other things you need to be doing and things you need to have prepared to maintain it. And then when something goes wrong and you're in a grid down situation, it's about dental care and that treatment. By the way, one of the things that was fatal to a lot of people in generations past, in centuries past, when you had tooth problems, it's extremely painful. But if that infection gets loose into the jaw, particularly in the upper jaw and into the nerves and some of the bloodstream that's close to the brain, that can be fatal very, very quickly. We don't see a lot of that right now because we're kind of taking care of problems, and you go to the dentist and they give you some antibiotics and they pull the teeth. What are you going to do when there is no dentist? You need to be prepared in that area, and don't wait because it'll only get worse, and of course it can be very, very hazardous. Then we come to number 10, personal protection and family defense is one of these. And this is something where you learn through knowledge and experience and practice, and you have to be ready to utilize these skills. Now, are weapons the first thing that you do? Is this the first thing that you get out the gun and point it at somebody when there's a threat? And it's absolutely not. The best offense that you can have is total avoidance. There might be some other tools that you could utilize that might help ward some people off or shut down a situation, but you have to be sure you can use them also because they can just escalate a problem. And it comes right down to the actions of last resort may in fact be with a weapon with deadly force. Now, if you have to take that kind of an action, you need to do it. Now, different people have different feelings about that. There's some people that said, I've never owned a gun, I never will, I'll never do that. Well, that is your choice. You have that authority. You have the stewardship to simply say, I won't do that. That also means that you have the accountability, perhaps, of watching things happen to your family that you don't want to happen. You have to deal with the reality of these things, and that's where it comes to building your skills to the top level of conditioning now. You have to be able, this is where education is so critically important. You have to be able to recognize to real threats, know what is a real threat, and know how to respond to them. And then you've got to be able to take proper action, not misinterpret, not make a mistake. If there's a disaster going on and there's some ugly things happening, what are you going to do? Well, one of the books you should consider, this is an important book, it's called On Combat, by David Grossman. It is a highly recommended book by so many people that are in this field of personal defense. On Combat is the one you should have. Now, you need training. One of the classes we do is Wellness Class 7107, which is Personal Protection and Family Defense. There is 7270. This is the NRA Basic Pistol class. Please get training. Even if you've been taken to the firing range and you've plunked a few shells before and you've been out playing, you need professional training. One of the things that happens when folks come to the classes that we do with a professional, he's a peace officer, when he trains in this class, I hear again and again from people saying, wow, I've had a gun for 30 years. I learned a lot of stuff in here and I had some bad habits I needed to correct. Get professional training wherever you are. Also, Wellness Class 7370 is the NRA Basic Personal Protection in the Home class. And then you've got to use those skills. You can move it to another level if you want. We have a Class 7470, which is the Utah Concealed Carry Permit course. You may want to consider doing that. Wellness Class 7271 is extremely important because it's about the best offense is a very low profile defense. In other words, it's not about being aggressive and taking on the fight. It's about how do you not get in the middle of one of these things? How do you stay out of the way and not even be seen? Wellness Class 7372. When fight you must, win. And you've got to be prepared to do that by whatever means it is. And the subtitle of that, you can say, well, never just bring a knife to a gunfight because that won't work out very well. Wellness Class 7374. Security for your neighborhood and community. This is important so that you're avoiding these kinds of things, because you have to understand, this is why you want community, because individuals can lose, but teams can win. Wellness Class 7375. Security measures for your evacuation vehicle. If you've got to get out of Dodge, what are some of the things that you need to have your vehicle prepared with so that you can evacuate and you can make it? This is about security. And then there's the defendable home. Defense at home and when to bail. And I hope that you start to understand by the titles of the different classes and what's in them, that there is a lot of material in these areas. There's many things for you to learn, and for you to help other people learn that will be a part of your community. And this personal defense and family defense is so important. Well, a plan of action in this area and all of the things we've talked about. Number one, don't be apathetic. You need to be proactive so that you don't become a victim. The responsibility is yours for your health and well-being. You see, it's up to you now and in the future. If you choose to be dependent on the services and things around you, what you've chosen is to become a victim. And the kinds of actions and things you do now will determine the outcome in the future. That's why it's very important that you get involved in things and learning and reading and going to classes and encouraging other family members to do these things. Do things that you're not good at. And they learn things, they bring it back to you. You know, today, a minor injury and sickness is just not a big issue, because we live under normal stresses right now. We have a normal emotional stress and functioning sanitation, functioning healthcare, and those things. But when a disaster occurs, when stress is high, when the system is down, when the environment is contaminated, a minor injury or sickness can become deadly. So prevention is vital. When things really break down, it will be up to you, because you may not have the people coming to rescue you. They want to come. FEMA, the Red Cross, the National Guard, other relief agencies, they want to come, but they're in the same mess that you're in, or there's just too many people before they get to you. So your actions now will determine the outcome. Being prepared, being able to prevent things from going really bad is important. Our healthcare systems we depend on require this infrastructure that we have. And they can fail because of physical damage, loss of energy, and the people to run and maintain things. And when the system is disrupted, it's very important that you are willing, able, and can take responsibility, because your actions, they have to be automatic. You can't sit around and say, well, gee, okay, I wonder what am I going to do? That's why you practice now. You have to think community, and you've developed community. You're prepared to help others. They're prepared to help you. The best strategy for wellness is a preventive strategy. because it's a heck of a lot easier to prevent things than to go through remediation trying to recover. In some cases, it may be so severe you cannot recover. Your first line of defense is to balance and strengthen your whole body and the immune system now. That's why you learn the things you do now. When we talk about this first, it's about lifestyle. It's about attitude, it's about diet, nutrition, supplementation, cleansing, detoxifying, exercise, and it's the relationships you have, both internal and external. That's all a part of maintaining who you are and being well no matter what. That's your first line of defense. Your second line of defense is you reduce and eliminate your exposure to health and wellness issues and problems. Stay out of the way. Don't go into the melee. Don't fall prey to the pandemic, these things. You avoid things. You learn how to do that now. It's also important that you, by minimizing your exposure, you're going to have to get credible information. It's better to be safe than sorry. But, there's a lot of times that they talk about evacuations and things, and then they say evacuate people, do nothing happens. Now they're all unhappy. Heck, I'd rather get out of the way and not be caught in the middle of something and have to deal with it than to stay there and try and be some kind of a macho hero. You avoid problem areas. You avoid sick people. You use personal protective gear, and then you have to make the decision: do you stay, do you evacuate, do you quarantine, depending on the situation. These are all very important decisions that you have to be able to take. You have to take preemptive action, and this is about listening, this is about observing. This is where communications is important, where you may in fact have it. And if you wait, you may become a victim, and it's about being prepared to respond before the masses. You get caught in everybody else that's evacuating and run away, you're likely to get stalled or trampled in the process. Your third line of defense is you have to be ready to take care of your own sanitation now. Sanitation will get you sick. Failed sanitation will, it'll kill you. Your fourth line of defense, you must be able to maintain your own health and wellness. It's everything we've been talking about. Don't wait, learn now. Your fifth defense is to be able to care for sick family members without becoming sick yourself. There's a class we have on that one that you'll learn about. You need to take that class and be prepared to make a sick room, to cordon off an area, the use of plastic sheet and duct tape, and make an airlock and those things, and know how to properly decontaminate yourself. If somebody has something really gnarly, are you going to dump them on the front porch and say live or die, or are you going to put them in a room, quarantine them off, and do your best to care for them? What are some of the things you can do to do that? These are tough decisions, but you may have to. So you learn the basic skills of caring for the very sick without becoming sick, and you have these tools and supplies ahead of time. Well, the role of wellness in Provident Living, it's really about joy and well-being at all levels that we've talked about. It is physical, mental, emotional, intellectual, social, and spiritual. It is all of those areas. And there's the classes that we talk about that are being presented and will be presented. So the question is, will you live providently? Well, as always, you have that choice. And if you make the proper provisions, have the tools, have the supplies, have the skills in all areas of your life, you can face the future with hope and confidence, no matter how gnarly it may look. And as always, the truth about life is this: there's no doubt that tomorrow will come, and there's no dispute that things happen. But how you're prepared to meet tomorrow will make all the difference in the world. If you're prepared for the worst, then no matter what happens, it will be an adventure. And I believe we should make our lives adventures rather than tragedies. So it's what's inside your head. It's what's in your heart. It's what you're prepared to stand for and do that's more important than the stuff. By the way, you need the stuff. But you've got to get your head, your heart together. That's why Provident Living is top-down, spiritual, attitude, knowledge, and then stuff. So play with these things, have fun, experiment, do things, try some weird things, play with it. Have a strange diet for a while. Go out in the cold, go out in the heat, take care of your own human waste. Experiment with all these things so you know how to do that. As always, we will be here to teach and share as much as we can. You will see, and you have seen, more things coming. And as always, we have a lot of things that will be free, and there's a lot of things that are low cost. Internet audio cast that we do every Tuesday night. That's been a lot of fun for me to do and interview those people. the webcast that we have here that you can watch online, or, and we've had connectivity issues up at Cabela's, but we plan to be back up there. I have a new modem that has been delivered. I have to test it and put it in. It's a special modem because it's on a T1 line. Can't just bring the one from Hull. Then we have our newsletter. The calendar is going up. We have classes for Tuesday night that are planned through the end of January, and we have classes on the Wednesday night that are being planned months ahead. And so we will be here. We hope you'll be here and bring other people with you. Well, as always, I'll be glad to. I'm going to clear my chat room right here. Let's see. And then if you have any questions about this wellness area to start with, and then any others, I'll be glad to address them. Do my best to answer them. Many of these classes, if you've seen, will be taught on Wednesday nights. We can't get them all on Wednesday night. That's only 52 classes a year, and some of these classes are 2, 3, and 4 hours long. We will teach as many of them as we can online, make them available there, but you'll see all of them come up in live classes that will be videotaped. Yes, thanks. You can get a free copy of Where There's No Doctor on their website, and there's a lot of things that are free online you can find. One of the challenges, however, depends on how expensive. You want a hard copy. You can have things digitally, and you can put them on your Kindle and on your iPod and what have you, and then EMP or CME will take that out. You won't have it. Everything that you have needs to be in hard copy. So you can download that, you can print it out yourself. You may find, depending on how you print, that the printing is more expensive than buying a copy of these things, because inkjet printers are very, very expensive. So are your smaller laser printers. Now, if you have access to a big commercial kind of printer and you can take the file there and zap them out, it may in fact be cheaper. But if you print them at home on your home inkjet printer, you're going to be paying somewhere between 12 to 25 cents a page if you really add up the cost. So it may be cheaper to buy a hard copy. And by the way, you can get used copies too. Go online and look for used copies. If you need to save money, save money. But any of these books that are so critical for you to have, you want to have a hard copy of them. Because you need to refer back to them. You can't remember it all. We'll be glad to help you any way we can, because our mission is to build community. It's about outreach. It's about reaching as many people as we can, and that's the whole purpose of what we're doing, and that's why we spent the past year and a half building both an infrastructure, learning technology, and being able to do these things and publish classes, because I'm not prepared till my neighbors are prepared is what it comes down to. And it's really the same for you, and within your own household and within your own family. Hopefully some of these classes will be very instructional in assisting people get their attitude and their ideas about this. And I know there's some people that don't want to know, don't tell me the facts about this stuff, it scares me, and some of those people we can't help. However, what I am observing, there's more and more people becoming very interested in this concept of, hey, things are tough, could get tougher, economic collapse, global this or that, watching what's happening in the Middle East and Iran and Israel is like, oh my heck, does the oil get shut off? Does this whole thing blow up? I don't know. And I'm not a gloom and doom guy. I'm just a realist. Things happen. And when things happen, you need to be ready to respond to them properly. You need to be prepared to stay out of the way. You need to be prepared to not be a victim. To me, this just makes sense. I don't want to be a victim. I tried being a victim. It hurts. I've been scared in my life. I've been cold. I've been hungry. I've been lost. I've been a lot of things, and I found that it was unpleasant. And I've also found that those things can happen again. So it's like, I just want to have an adventure rather than a end of life experience or a terrible trauma and fright and worry. And so my whole interest, that's why I use that statement all the time, being prepared for the worst, then it's an adventure. So we'll do our best to try and reach people in a very positive way. I want to come at it from principles rather than a bunch of scare stuff. And some of the stuff's pretty gnarly. You get into the advanced classes, some of them are kind of gnarly. You don't want to start there. So you begin with these overview classes in the 1000 series and some of the others that are a little more friendly. And hopefully people will catch on and say, hey, this is something I should pay attention to. I think I'll learn more. Have yourself a great evening. This is Jim Phillips with Safe Harbor Alliance. Have the best of days. Good night.